But verbs are far more exciting because they create this anticipatory activity. Anyway.
No, I love, before you move on from that, I love that you said that because you're helping me realize something really important about how I saw my role as a violinist. And in addition, I'm never going to modify the notes on the page because obviously I'm going to be faithful to what Beethoven wrote.
This is what made you a great musician and me by the way, I was a failed violinist. They pulled me out of it because the neighbor's dogs. I was in Suzuki method.
I was in Suzuki
I was
too,
so terrible at it that they literally made me stop playing music just to protect the neighborhood.
That's adorable. Yeah. And I mean, we'll talk about the science of quitting maybe later, but that was a great choice for you. But what I'm realizing is that there was that element of defining self through the pursuit of the instrument. And I saw a place for myself exactly like you did, where I thought, I decide how this phrase unfolds. I decide how much vibrato I use. I decide exactly what the angling of my bow is and the cadence and the pacing and the emotion that I bring to the experience. And when you see a place for yourself, I mean, that takes an awe-inspiring experience. And then actually there's a translation process where you become something bigger than what you thought you could be. And actually, it's so interesting you mentioned this, Andrew, because I've been chatting recently with a guy named Reginald Dwayne Betts, and he spent 9 years in prison, and he's now a internationally renowned scholar. So he committed a carjacking when he was 15 years old, and then went to an adult prison for 9 years. And
as a 15-year-old?
As he just turned 16 by the time he got his sentence. Yeah, it was totally wild.
Brutal.
And he actually talks about the fact that, there was this underground library in the prison system. And he didn't know what he could be in the prison, what identity he could take on when everyone seemed to be defined by what crime they had committed, right? It felt like his imagination was so limited to and talk about identity paralysis, right? I mean, like, you're denied all your basic freedoms in this environment, right? So you really don't even have the ability to imagine what more you could be. So one day he gets a book called The Black Poets, and in the book, he read a poem by Etheridge Knight, who had also spent time in prison and had written this incredibly stirring poem about the criminal justice system. And he goes by Dwayne, but what Dwayne shared with me is he said, I was awe-inspired by what I was reading. But the most important thing that happened in reading that book and understanding the author's history is that it gave me something to be. I saw a place for myself in this world. And he wrote, I mean, he was so prolific. He wrote like 1,000 poems in the year after he stumbled upon this book. And he ended up winning the MacArthur Genius Award. He went to Yale Law School. I mean, he's just crushed it ever since. But I think you've stumbled upon a really important point, which is awe. There's a fascinating science of awe and all the benefits it can confer to our well-being, but it can also serve as an entry point to helping to define our identities in new places.